And welcome everybody to another episode of Glove Up or Shut Up right here on AngryMarks.com. My name is Peter H. and I'm joined by my co-host who is not suspended for 30 days for a wellness violation. It's in fact the birthday boy, Stevie J from Omaha, Nebraska.
Well, yeah, that was a couple days ago, but thank you. I appreciate it. And no, I did not go out and get a wellness policy violation celebrating. I kept it in check.
Stevie is 39 for the third straight year, so there you go.
Absolutely. I'll be 39 forever. How about that?
There's a t-shirt.
Yeah, but I think you might have actually had more fun this weekend than I did.
Yeah, UFC Fight Night 89 here in Ottawa was... there are a lot of words I could say. I don't know if you know this, Stevie, but if it came across on the broadcast, but at one point the 10,000 strong were chanting, "We want AC, clap, 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 clap. We want AC."
No, that didn't come across. Was it really that hot?
Okay, so the story that has come out over the last few days since the event took place is that when the junior hockey team, who is I guess one of the main tenants of the TD Place Arena, when their season was done, they started installing air conditioning in the building. This building is 40 years old and has never had AC before. They were only able to get it up to 60% capacity before the day of the fights. So they had all the doors wide open. There was reports of a father was talking about his son had suffered heat stroke and he was in he's getting treatment with ice packs all over his body to cool his body temperature down.
Oh yeah, I saw the same thing happen to somebody in line outside WrestleMania in Dallas. That's no good.
No, he said he had to leave the event and the son missed his favorite fighters.
Oh, well, that sucks. I'm sorry that the venue was such a hot box. That's kind of ironic if they play hockey there that it's so hot you can't even stand to be in the building.
Well, it didn't help that unfortunately Saturday was the hottest day of the year so far in Ottawa.
Well, it was the hottest day of the year in a lot of parts of the country. I hear that North America is on pace for record-setting summer this year.
Yeah, and I have some advice. If you live in the state of Arizona, move. Just move.
Yeah, but you know what? It's awfully nice in the winter.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You don't have to imagine. I've been there in the winter, and boy, does it feel good.
Oh, man. All right, well, UFC Fight Night 89, Rory MacDonald against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in the main event.
All right, but let's not start with the fights itself. I want to know about your experience. Take me through the first thing you went to as a reporter for The Observer all the way up to the event. I want to hear it.
Well, the first thing I did was I got there a little bit early, so I decided to check out the UFC Fan Village, which was quite interesting. They had you could take a picture with the belt. You and a buddy could do like a tail of the tape. There was a lot of merchandise for sale. You could take a picture with the ring girl. And a friend of mine from Live 885, DJ Noah, was actually the DJ on site for the Fan Village.
Oh, that's cool.
So he was spinning the tunes, and it was really, really awesome. A lot of fans turned out for that. And then I went inside the building and got checked in and went down and observed the Q&A portion, which Stevie Ray is, as Chris Weidman says, a dead ringer for William Wallace with his accent. Aljamain Sterling was one of the reporters, and I were having a conversation about how Sterling and Weidman could have like a little brother, big brother comedy show because they were just playing off each other the whole time.
Yeah, those two know each other well. I'm pretty sure about that.
And the Q&A, there was some fans who, let's just say they were already intoxicated. Some questions were good, some questions repeats, but a lot of fans want to know Weidman's thoughts on who he wants to fight next between Luke Rockhold and Michael the Count Bisping.
Right, yeah. So, of course, I'm sure the fans were plenty inebriated because whenever they do those Q&As, you get fans that are just literally stumbling over themselves and their own words.
So what he said was, if he gets to fight Rockhold for the title, or for the rematch, so to speak, he wants to fight Rockhold in New York or Bisping in Manchester. If he doesn't want to come to the States to defend the title, I'll go over there and beat him for the belt over in his home country.
Now, I know this really made the rounds on Monday after the fights were over, but was anybody talking about GSP returning to face Bisping? Did that get out to the press while you were there?
No, it did not. What actually, and this might shock you, during the Q&A, and I think it was either during the Q&A and also just before the weigh-ins, and a little bit into the weigh-ins, a lot of the reporters were checking UFC Fight Pass waiting for the Fedor fight.
Oh, yeah. We can talk about that later, too, because I actually watched that fight on Fight Pass myself. I took a little time on Sunday afternoon to catch the replay of it, and wow, just wow.
There was a reporter from Sherdog who was very animated watching the fights, like, let's go, come on, go.
Was it TJ DeSantis?
No, it wasn't TJ.
Was it Jordan Breen?
Yes, it was Jordan Breen.
I got it on the second try. I like Jordan. That's a good dude.
Yeah, no, he's cool. He said any friend of Uncle Dave is a friend of mine.
Yeah, Jordan's aces.
No, he's pretty cool. As far as the Q&A, Stevie really didn't get that many questions. I felt bad for him, but the answers he did answer, with that accent, like, he should be able to talk more. He seems like he's got a lot of charisma. I think he just needs the opportunity.
Right.
Sterling, Sterling
is an opinionated guy.
He reminds me of an opinionated DJ, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. It totally does.
And he's Weidman. 6 days after neck surgery, he's doing a Q&A.
Yeah, well, I think he'd probably fight right now if they'd let him.
He still had a staple or a Band-Aid or something on his neck. Like, he still had it, you know what I mean? Like it's probably an incision.
Right.
Yeah. And we'll talk about what happened with Weidman after the main event, because there's a funny note I have for that as well.
Sure. So take us through the rest of your work week and what went on from there.
Saturday, checked in early again and getting that habit.
You didn't have to stand around like a goof outside the doors waiting, did you?
For about 5 minutes.
Oh, that's not too bad. I've had to stand outside for like 20 or 30 minutes while they wait to open up the doors for the press. It can get a little tedious.
No, it was pretty nice. The PR person was super nice there, and
which PR person did you have? Because I know several. Was it Matt Redmanovich?
No, it was Stephanie.
Oh, it was Stephanie. Okay.
Yeah, she was really nice. She described, okay, go down here. There's the media food. So they set up a nice little food for us there, and they set up some TVs. It was the designated media center. Mm-hmm. So if you didn't want to go down to the cage, you don't go to the cage and watch the fights. You can watch it from the luxury, using the air quotes, luxury of sitting in a football field inside some tents. And to which Robin Black said, "Wow, this is a football fan's dream wedding right now."
Right, yeah.
And I said, I met a few guys on the Fight Network, including Robin Black, former guest of this show. And we chatted a bit, and we were talking about, for example, I made the stupid prediction that this fight won't go 5 rounds in the main event. And he goes, yeah, it might go 5 rounds. And I said, I don't know, with these guys, the power they have, I don't know if it's going to go 5. And boy, was I wrong.
Boy, did you live to eat those words.
Oh, well, I'll explain what more words I had to eat after my report, because I've stupid Twitter trolls. But let's just say dinner was good. I saw a few people in the distance. Funny note, the fighters actually have to cross the 50-yard line to cross from one of the sections to go to there's like south side and north side stands. Mm-hmm. And I want to say the north side is where the entrance is to get into the arena. The south side, the other side, that's where all the fighters were. So they had to cross the football field to get to the stadium, basically. It was pretty funny, but I saw guys like Herb Dean, Bruce Buffer, and Tom Wright. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, so you had a good time.
Absolutely. Then go down, and for a second I thought to myself, like, you walk into the arena and the fans are milling about, and I'm trying to find where the section is to go down to the media section, and for half a second I forget that I'm there as media. I'm walking around like this is going to be cool, and then I go down to the media section. It's like, keep going down the stairs and hang right here and walk right up to the cage. I'm like, really? Okay, I can do that. So you get there, you set up your laptop and introduce yourself to the guy sitting next to you, and
yeah, so tell me who you were sitting next to, because that's how I've made friends with some of the guys we've had on the show. Like, Dwayne Finley was sitting right next to me at one of the shows I went to.
I was talking to a reporter from a Montreal newspaper.
What was his name?
You've
already forgotten, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
Oh, Peter.
I was sorry. I've had so many people there. Some names escape me at the moment, but I was sitting to my right was the reporter for Le Droit, and to my left was the cameraman for him.
Oh, okay.
So he was leaving every second fight to talk to post-fighter scrums, and he was missing half the show. And then he would tell me, I just watched the last fight in the media center, and the breeze is very nice outside.
Yeah.
And very, very broken English, I might add.
See, that actually happened to me one time when I thought we were going to get some interviews in the media center, and I left and went down there to talk to somebody, and the great Sergio Pettis and Bruce Leroy fight was happening while I was standing around waiting for some guy that never showed up. So I ended up watching it on the TV in the media center instead of at cage side. I was not thrilled when the guy I was supposed to interview didn't show up. I was not pleased.
Funny note, I heard through certain media personalities there, the Ali Bagatinov post-fight interview did not happen because they could not find a translator.
Oh man, that's terrible.
It was either Bagatinov or Misha, one of the two, because they were pretty close in availability after their fights. Like, it was either A or B, but it's like, when you're on press row, you know this, it's like information overload. Because you don't have any time to really react because you gotta focus on the next fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you go out.
You almost need to clone yourself when you're at a UFC live event, because you need one version of you to run and get interviews, you need another version of you to do play-by-play, and you need another version of you so you can talk to all the other reporters.
Absolutely. And, the event overall was quick, it was hot, stinking hot. What can I say? The AC, obviously, that was the main story. The seats were amazing. I was second row from the cage. There was only one row of reporters ahead of me. And from my vantage point, if I looked dead ahead and slightly to the left, I could see Kenny Florian doing his play-by-play the entire night.
Very cool. Hey, any of the Octagon girls come over and plug in their phones at your outlet to charge them?
No, but, I want to believe that one of the ring girls waved at me at one point.
Yeah, they are friendly. I'm sure that's not unreasonable to think.
And I told my wife that, and she goes, yeah. No, but, it was a good venue. I can speak from experience from my wife and one of my best friends who was there. Basically, my ticket, in case my credentials fell through, I was still going to go to the show. So, I was going to be there, Stevie. You know that.
Oh, of course.
And the seats weren't bad. The sight lines were much better than Montreal. Mm-hmm. According to, because all four of us were at that show in Montreal, so remember the sight lines there.
Yeah.
These were, the angle was much better from where they were sitting. They could see a lot more. I'll send you a picture or two they snapped, but it was pretty good. They were asking me questions afterwards about what did I hear about this fight and that fight. We'll talk about that in a second. But where I was sitting, the fighters, when they exit, they don't exit the same entrance. They come into the cage, right?
Yeah.
So they walk down the steps and they turn left and they go in front of me, basically. So I saw every fighter walk past me after their fight.
And you saw how beat up some of them were.
Yeah, we'll get this. One fighter in particular, I was like, oh dear God.
Yes. Well, now let me ask you a quick question before we go over these results.
Mm-hmm.
There was only one fight that ended in the first round, and we'll get to that in a minute, but I know when I have nights like that, when I'm covering fights, whether it's UFC, Bellator, or anything else, that one fight that ends in the first round, it's like, God, I gotta run to the bathroom right now. So did you?
No, I actually, I was updated the story, and then I had some time, so I stood up. This is the only time I got to stand up in the 7 hours I was there.
That's what I was thinking. You took some kind of break when you had that chance.
And a friend of mine, I was on my Facebook updating my social media, and I say, a friend of mine, she goes, how are you? And I'm like, I'm good. I'm at the fight. And she goes, so am I. Well, I'm in media row. She's like, yeah, I can see you. What? I'm looking around. Great. I got a stalker. Who's looking at me now? And turns out she was in the 5th row. She trains at the Ottawa Academy of Mixed Martial Arts, and we used to work together at Health Canada. So I saw her when there was that big break. I went over to say hi to her, and I haven't seen her in a couple of years, but we're still active friends on Facebook, and she echoed a lot of the sentiment for a lot of friends. And I want to thank everybody for the kind words on Facebook and private message. Basically, paying my dues has led me to this opportunity, and thanks to everybody for the kind words. It really means a lot.
Yeah, I'm glad you got to do it. You were bound to do it sooner or later. I knew after having done several of these myself that your turn was coming sooner or later.
And for those who don't know, I did the math, Stevie. I've been watching, it'll be in November, 10 years watching UFC. When they played Teenage Wasteland, I texted you and I said, I've got chills right now. I texted, no, it was Danny, and I think I texted you, and I texted my wife.
Yeah, you texted me too. I got that text.
My wife said to me, no kidding around, how the F are you getting chills? It's roasting in here.
That music,
I said, Teenage Wasteland, it does it to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's the start of a big show. It's what gets you into that moment. They use that video package every single UFC you or I have ever been to live, so.
Yep.
I hope they never change it.
No, it's tradition. Mm-hmm. And before we do the results, I do want to mention 2 quick things that happened. I'm not sure if they made it onto air. One was, a moment of silence for the victims of Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one was a very nice video package to commemorate the life and times of Kimbo Slice.
Yeah, I'd been given to understand they were going to do that, so I'm not surprised about either one.
The only problem with the moment of silence for the victims, the very tragic story out of Orlando, was you could definitely tell it was a pre-tape, because when they said, "Can you please rise for a moment of silence?" So I tried to get out of my chair, and I finally get to stand up. And before I fully get stood up, thank you. It's like, but we're not standing up yet. Like, it was too quick. And I look over, as I was trying to stand up, I look over to the announcers, and you could see John Anik. It wasn't a live microphone. It was obviously a pre-tape.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's okay. They have to time these things out to get everything on TV, especially given how long the fights were running. So I don't blame them for that.
Yeah, some of the reporters who aren't fans, like hardcore fans like you and I, they were really impressed with how down to the second timing this production was. I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, this must be your first UFC show. Because, it's almost like they've mastered the art of timing everything out.
They do. They do a spectacular job. The UFC production people, the UFC media people, the UFC press relations, it's all very smoothly run when you're at a live event. You know that they are the cream of the crop.
Well, speaking of cream of the crop, let's talk about these results. And I did the math.
Do you want to go from the bottom to the top, or the top to the bottom?
Let's do bottom to the top, because I want to mention this. This night, I did the math, 40 rounds of action.
Like I said, only one fight was a 1-round fight. Everything else either went to the 3rd round or wasn't finished till the 3rd round, one or the other. Well, the main event, of course, 5 rounds. And
the first 4 fights, I believe it was the red corner, won all 4 fights.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, that's an odd tradition to have there, but okay.
Yeah, now speaking of chills, let me just say, the very first time I ever did a UFC live, not just as a fan, but just, being there, I got chills the very first time Bruce Buffer said, "Fighting out of the red corner." It makes the bumps on your hair, like you said, the same feeling you got hearing Teenage Wasteland. It's like the first time you hear Bruce Buffer do that live, it's like, okay, this is cool.
I think I might have had a relapse, another one of those chill moments when he did the main event announcements, and he goes from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and the whole crowd erupted. It was like, that feels amazing.
Well, yeah, and that palpable sound wave you get that rushes over you when the whole crowd reacts.
Yeah. I hope they come back soon, because the fans there, when that happened, that was a huge pop.
Well, hopefully they get the AC working before they do.
Yeah, you're not the first person to say that one.
All right, Ali Bagatinov and Gene Herrera, what do you have to say about this?
30-27 across the board. It was a decent fight. I didn't think Herrera won a single round, so I agree with this decision. When that final horn went off, he was definitely celebrating like he won, and Herrera, I think, knew as well. So, not the most spectacular way to start the show, but the first fight, you're gonna have some fans just, happy to see something, anything. It's like the first prelim fight at a pay-per-view for, UFC, belts or whatever, like that first fight in a new arena, that first ever fight.
Oh yeah, I know, but I mean, honestly, did anybody think Gene Herrera even had a chance here? I mean, Bagatinov is a top 15 flyweight, and this guy isn't even ranked and nobody's even heard of him.
Yeah. Well, the next fight between Colby Covington and Jonathan Meunier in a last-minute replacement there. Covington wins in the third round. I'm surprised it took Covington this long because, Jonathan Meunier was up for the challenge.
But would you
Covington,
say he was winning at any point in that fight?
I have to check my notes, but off the top of my head, I don't think so.
No,
Covington
I don't
was
think
definitely
so
showing
either.
his experience.
Yeah, Covington should not have had any problem with a last-minute replacement, and he didn't.
No. And nothing wrong with short notice and taking the guy to the third round, take him to the limit. And
it was Meunier's first loss, so it's not too bad.
UFC debut.
Yeah, I mean, he'll get called back just for taking the fight on short notice, especially
Absolutely.
since he's 7-1 overall. No shame in that.
And that's when I first noticed Joe Silva walking back and forth in front of me the whole night.
Yep, matchmaker to UFC extraordinary fights. That's his role, and he's always going to be checking on things as they go on because he put it all together.
Now, you say UFC matchmaker, and it brings me back to the Q&A, or the weigh-ins for a second.
Mm-hmm.
There was a question in the Q&A about the UFC sale. And the fan asked if John Anik would replace Joe Rogan, because Rogan has said that if the UFC is sold, he'll leave.
Right, and of course, the UFC has all along been deny, dispute, and deny with the whole sale thing, so I'd be surprised if anybody even answered that.
Well, no, he said, I hope Joe stays, but I wouldn't technically replace him because he's play-by-play, I'm color. Or vice versa, one of the two.
Right.
It's not the right role. So, UFC sale, we didn't really talk about that a lot at the event. I think if it happened this weekend, there'd be a lot more discussion about it. But I was surprised to find out what website broke that story, Stevie.
Yeah, from our show last week, Dwayne Finley's website, Flow Combat.
Which I was like, wait a minute, I know that name.
Yes, you do.
All right, so let's move on to the catchweight. The only fighter to miss weight, Randa Marcos against Jocelyn Jones-Leibarger. 117.5 was what Marcos weighed in at, which led a few reporters actually, to say apparently hair dye weighs 1.5 pounds.
Oh, ouch.
And I'm like, I don't know if that's funny or, cause with the advanced weigh-ins, we were having this discussion. Like, it's closed to the public, it's closed to the media. It's just the fighters and the commission. And they're going to be doing this apparently from now on, because I know it just got approved for UFC 200, so.
Yeah, they're doing it for a lot of Bellator shows too. It's trending that way in general.
So, my question is, with this more relaxed 3-hour window, is it one and done? Like, if I step on the scale at 10 o'clock and I'm off by 2 pounds, can I run to the sauna and shed 2 more pounds?
I don't know if you can. I think the whole expectation is that if you're getting to weigh in early, you should be ready for your weigh-in the night before. You shouldn't need any extra time after that.
Because the one thing I tried to figure out, if this these weigh-ins are closed to the public and closed to the media. And the weigh-in ceremony, it's basically going to be a ceremonial weigh-in from now on. The fighters all were still stepping on the scales, some of them right down to their skivvies, and some were surprised that they made the weight. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking, did they not already weigh in? Like, because there's a commission person there, making sure the weight, it wasn't a digital scale, it was one of those old school scales.
Right.
So.
Are we talking old school, like, you have to move the little thing back and forth across it? Yeah.
So, I'm thinking maybe they missed weight and this is like a last chance to do it in front of everybody. Or maybe it was just a tradition. You have to go down, strip your skivvies and weigh in regardless, because some of the weight numbers when they were announced, Anik would say, so-and-so, his official weigh-in as of this morning was 170 pounds. And some he just said, all right, his weight is 170 pounds. There was a different language.
Yeah, I suppose that's going to become an issue with the verbiage is, if some guys are trying to make the weight later and some guys already made the weight that morning, then he might have to flip-flop back and forth to get it in and word it the right way. It's hard to say.
Well, Marcos looked a little anxious on the scale when it said 117.5. It was like, oh, okay.
There's no such thing as anxious until you see a fighter step on the scale and call for a towel immediately. Like, then they're screwed.
Yeah, well.
Before it's even announced, they call for a towel. That's bad.
Marcos wins the fight. She beats Jones Lieberger 29-28, 29-28, and 30-27. However, she will forfeit 20% of her winner's purse because of the missed weight.
Right. But do you agree with the scores? Do you think that Lieberger got at least a round in?
I think she got a round in, yeah.
Which one?
I find my report, I'll tell you in 2 seconds, but I'll punch that up for you right now on f4wonline.com. If you can get a cheap plug-in every week, I get one plug-in.
Of course. WrestlingObserver.com is an even better plug.
Absolutely. And I want to give a quick thank you to Josh Nason and Tony for all the help they helped me with over the past week.
Yep, those guys
trying to get
great.
my login. So yeah, they were pretty quick to respond when I messaged you about an issue I had, and
I told you just get a hold of Josh.
Spot, so.
I was like, if you contact Josh, he'll take care of everything.
Absolutely. All right, let's see, Fight Night. Here we go. It's kind of surreal to see my name on the website now. You know what I mean? Like, I've read this website for many years and to actually be an MMA contributor, MMA reporter now.
I'd say it was more surreal the first time I ever met Dave in Vegas, and he's like, oh, you send me the Ring of Honor reports. Good to meet you. I'm like, oh my God, he remembers who I am. But years later, like 10 years later, I look back on that moment now and I'm like, of course Dave remembered who I was. Dave remembers everything.
All right, so here's my notes from the show. Actually, I scored the fight 30-27 Marcos.
Oh, okay, so you didn't give Lieberger a round.
No, I thought I did, but I guess I didn't.
Yeah, see, that's kind of, I was leaning that way myself. That's why I wanted to know if you agreed with the judges.
Okay, so there's two notes here I have. One for the previous fight with Covington. Mm-hmm. During the post-fight interview in the cage, he said if it doesn't matter if it was GSP in the cage with him, no one was going to stop him from getting the victory here tonight.
Yeah, I think GSP would probably stop him, but that's nice to say when you don't have him in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. Marcos, there was a funny moment when Marcos was thanking her team. Basically, she turned to her team, I couldn't do it without these fucking guys. I'm sorry. It was like, oh, jeez.
Why even apologize? You're on UFC Fight Pass. You have to have a subscription and pay and tune in early. So I don't think that offended anybody.
Oh, the crowd loved it. They laughed at that one. So,
So let's move on to Teodoro and Alvey. What did you think of this fight?
I have to talk about this fight.
Yes, you do.
So, if you like one fighter bouncing around and bouncing around and bouncing around for 3 rounds, and the other guy getting frustrated and basically, come on, fight, and not fighting, you get this fight.
Well, it's not the responsibility of the guy complaining to be the official in the fight. He has to make the other fighter engage, and if he couldn't do that, that's his problem.
So when the judges' scorecards were announced, and he goes 29-28, and then when Buffer said 30-27 and 30-27, on that first 30, Alvey just like, oh, Jesus. And he knew he lost right then and there. And as soon as Elias's name was read off, Alvey bolted. And I mean, pissed off out of that cage.
Yeah, well, that's why I said maybe it sucks to be him, but maybe he could have done more to press the action. If he didn't like it, then he should have done something to change it.
Now here's the quotes from that fight. From Elias, he's top 20 in the world and he can knock anyone's block off at any time. He has 17 knockouts for a reason, and I just made sure he didn't touch me.
Mm-hmm.
And Alvey, short and sweet, said, I hope the UFC keeps me. I would like to fight Bangbos because he beat the guy I was supposed to fight in February.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be a good fight, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be.
All right, let's talk about Chris Beal and Joe Soto.
Let's do.
I really like Chris Beal's performance in this fight. After 2 rounds, it was really exciting. And actually, after 2 rounds, I had this tied going to the third because there was it was back and forth in that second round, but Soto had a rear naked choke, but Beal escaped and threw a late flurry, so sometimes judges, that might be enough to steal a round. I gave it to Soto, so it was 10-9 for Beal first, 10-9 Soto second. The third, Beal was winning, and he's a fireball of energy. Unfortunately, Soto took Beal's back with 2 minutes left, went for the choke. Beal tried to roll over, and when they rolled back onto their backs were back on the mat, Soto had that choke locked in, and Beal's like, no, I can't. Tap. 3:39 of the final round.
All right, here's another technical note about being there live in press row. Sometimes when guys start rolling around for a submission like that, you get like a weird blockage of the fence, like you can't quite see it, or the referee is between you and the fighters, or there's a cameraman there standing on the edge of the apron. Did that happen to you?
Cameraman.
Yep.
I was in his direct line of sight the whole fight, so if the fighters were dead ahead in front of the cameraman, I had looked at the big screen.
Yeah, that's happened to me.
But, it happens. Soto wins, rear naked choke. Let's move on to Tamdan McCrory and Krzysztof Jotko.
Yes, the one break you got the whole night because Jotko KO'd the Barn Cat in 59 seconds.
I'd love to know what music the Barn Cat came out to because it sounded like something heavy metal.
Yeah, he likes to come out to music by what's their name? The group from Adult Swim, that Death Clock, Metalocalypse. He comes out to their music.
Yeah, well, didn't do him any good this fight, that's for sure. The replay showed the punch. It looked like Jotko hit the carotid artery. And McCrory went down. Jotko, one hammer fist, boom. Second hammer fist, it looked like it clipped the top of McCrory's nose. And the referee, as soon as that second hammer fist hit, dove in to save McCrory.
Yeah.
And they asked for ice packs and a stool real quick. Gives them some time. Now, we had lots of time for a commercial break because of the Fight Pass. We had some time.
You mean FS2? Because we're not on Fight Pass anymore at this point.
Right, FS2, sorry. So, they slowly put the ice pack behind his neck and slowly got him on the stool and slowly got him to his feet. And we're all waiting and waiting and waiting. Finally, we get the announcement. 59 seconds, first round. Okay. What you probably didn't see on the broadcast was after the fight was over, Jotko, the doctor walked in front of him and took him by the hand and walked him one by one down those steps and helped him walk to the back. It was pretty scary because the look on his face when he passed me, if I had the ability to read minds, Stevie, I'd say he thinks it's Tuesday.
He didn't know where he was or what he was doing.
No.
Yeah, that's a pretty good sign you got a concussion.
Well, that was the only bright spot as far as quick finishes are concerned, but, You know, the one thing that drives me nuts, and I'll talk about this in other fights as well, when you have a microphone in front of your face and you've had an impressive victory.
Say something. Say anything. Say what you mean to say.
There was one fight, the guy said, well, I spent 2 hours with Joe Silva last night talking about future opponents. And after that conversation, I'll fight anybody. I was like, you had your perfect opportunity. Ask for someone if you're not ranked in the top 15. It's not that hard. It's a big list.
Yeah, I know.
All right, let's talk about Misha Kurnikov and Ion Cutabella.
Yep, let's do. What were your thoughts on this fight?
Well, I had it split going into the third. Cutabella's right eye started bleeding in the third after a nice Superman punch. And early in the third, I should say, a minute 22, we saw a sick arm and triangle choke. And I saw this coming when he was setting up. You know, you've watched enough fights, Stevie, when you see someone going for a particular submission and you know exactly what he's going for before the opponent does.
Right. When you see him get down there on the ground and reach up around the neck and then you see him jump over to the side, you're like, oh, it's a wrap. That's going to be over quick.
It was more of a shimmy move type thing, but it was like in the midst of it, I'm like, oh, I know yep, that's tap. I think I turned to the guy who was sitting next to me and goes, he's going to tap right now. And he goes, what do you mean? Tap, 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 tap. I'm like, yep, called it.
Yeah.
Cause it was the arm and, to be in an arm triangle choke, it's probably one of the more painful moves out there because you really are stuck. Like, what was the one fight? I want to say last year, he had no way to tap, so he had to like verbally submit. It's like, well, how are you going to tap? Your foot?
I have actually seen fighters do that. I've seen fighters tap out with their foot.
Wow. All right, so let's talk about Jason Sago and I always screw this name up. Let's talk about Jason Sago and Leandro Silva.
Is that really such a hard name to say?
Because you always bust my balls about Leonardo, because that's what I always said before.
Yeah, well, you got it right this time. It's Leandro.
And this is the fight after the second round where the crowd chanted, "We want AC." Because it was stinking hot back at this fight. Not even the main card, Stevie. This is in the prelims, and the fans are already complaining about it.
I know.
All right, so 10-9 Sago, 10-9 Silva. Another split decision on my card going into the third. And this was a very close fight. In fact, in my report, I said, I give this fight to Sago 10-9, but it could easily be flipped. Mm-hmm. This was the case, as it was a split decision for Sago, 2-1 on 2 of the 3 cards.
Are you satisfied with that, though?
Yeah. I think, I always say never leave it to the judges. In this case, Silva just didn't do enough in the judges' eyes. And, Sago just was the aggressor here. And we'll talk about scorecards later because I have a little bit of a rant there. But being live in person, not having the ability to hear the commentary or to see the replays the judges get before they do their between rounds, they can look at replays. Mm-hmm. I'm updating the site. I don't have time to look at these replays to put my score in the report. You know what I mean? Right. I don't have access to see these replays before I make my judgment. So, it's a lot harder than it looks. And yes, some fights, it's easy, clear as day, 10-9. And when we were talking about the Fedor fight in the media tent on the Saturday, we were talking about the Fedor fight. And the first round of that one, definitely a 10-8 round. And someone from the Fight Network goes, 10-9, 10-8, that's a 10-7. So I know 10-8s aren't usually handed out, and none of these rounds in this particular fight were 10-8s, but it really goes to show how tough the judges have it because there's so many variables, and if you don't have the commentary benefit you have at home or the replays you have on those big video screens the judges have, then, it's harder than it looks.
Yeah, but then sometimes a fight is just so plain obvious that it doesn't matter. Like there was a fight week or two ago that I watched where they were reading off the scorecards, and I was thinking to myself, there's no way the judges didn't give 10-8s during that entire fight. And then they read off the scores, and it's like, the judges have scored it 30-25, 30-24, and 30-23. I'm like, yeah, you didn't need to tell me the scorecards. I knew that was a one-sided blowout.
Yeah, it's like, winner by butt kicking.
Exactly. Well, speaking of which, we'll have something to say about that when we get to Bellator.
Oh yeah. But let's talk about the main card here with Valerie Letourneau and Joanne Calderwood.
Yes, and I guess I turned out to be correct about JoJo, didn't I?
She was on her game on that night. It was very impressive performance here. Letourneau, the experience was there in that first round, but man, Calderwood she had an answer for everything. Looking back at my scores, this fight went all 3 rounds. No, it went to the 3rd round, but it got stopped. But going into the 3rd, I had both rounds for Calderwood.
And you know what? Calderwood moves up 5 spots in the rankings on the strength of this performance. She's now number 7 at strawweight.
So Letourneau got kicked and it looked like the ribs. And at one point she was holding her side and she's okay. And then during the fight, she had equipment problems, like one of her,
Yeah, she had a wardrobe malfunction, let's just put it that way.
Well, nothing was showing or anything, let's not say
but
like...
it was loose, it had come loose.
It had come loose, but it wasn't like she was exposing herself.
No, but she had to keep adjusting it because she thought that something was gonna pop out.
Exactly. So, Calderwood, when she saw, like, Letourneau adjusting herself, she stopped the fight. Well, not stopped the fight, but basically didn't strike her. Gave her a moment to compose, and then they tapped gloves and they were back to the fight. But she didn't have to do that.
No. Calderwood is a very classy individual.
Yes. I'm just trying to put
it's kind of like, it's the exact opposite of what we saw in Bisping and Silva, where instead of reacting to the fight like he should have and staying active, he got creamed by Silva.
Well, I was going to say, in the 3rd round, there was a really hard kick by Calderwood. Letourneau grabbed her side, turned her back, and was really in pain. The referee here didn't do anything. Calderwood's like, okay, literally kicked her in the butt to spin her back around, and then not nudged her, but one more strike, down goes Calderwood. 2 or 3 punches from the, when Letourneau was on the ground, that was it. And it was like, where was the referee? If someone is holding their side in agony and turned the back to the opponent, maybe stop the fight.
Every single person who's watched it, dude, I know you were there cage side, but I'm sorry to interject, but I agree because I've heard Dave and Brian say the same thing. I've heard every other podcast, report, live event, whatever. Everybody said the same thing. Like, that should be the universal sign the fight is over. If you turn your back to your opponent, you're done. You're not fighting.
I have had some people ask me, well, why didn't she just stop the fight? And I'm saying is my response, when you're a fighter, until the referee says stop, you continue. I have no ill will, Calderwood.
No,
she's,
this isn't Calderwood's
they're trained
fault.
not to. No, exactly. Don't pin this on her. It wasn't her fault. She's there as a fighter. I mean, there's sportsmanship to an extent, but you're in there. Once that door closes, it's...
This is entirely on the referee for not stopping the fight at that point.
Now, one funny note that I had here in my notes is that there were soccer chants in the crowd. Like, ole, 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 ole. Usually that's for a Canadian fighter, but Letourneau's European, and the Euro Championship's going on right now.
Actually,
so I'm not sure.
They're both European, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, so who are they cheering for?
I would suspect Calderwood, since she's from the United Kingdom.
I always make this reference, Stevie, and it's true in this case again. It's the old TNA joke where a team from, I think it was one of Conan's guys against someone from England, and the crowd was chanting USA, and Don West goes, I'm not saying our fans are the brightest, but are they chanting USA at the Mexican or the Brit?
You know, it's funny you say that because if you watch a very recent edition of Botchamania, I don't know if it's the last or the last before, there's a clip of Kevin Owens at a house show saying, I'm going to get these stupid marks to chant USA with 2 Canadians in the ring. And sure enough, they start doing it.
No.
Yes.
Alright, so let's move on. Calderwood won by TKO. 251 of round 3. During the post-fight, she was asked, and she said she'd probably go back to 115.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised by that. I told you if she won here, she'd be a force to be reckoned with in the flyweight division, so not shocked.
No, she said that all she does is ask to get on shows. She asked to be on the Ottawa show.
Well, I'm glad she got it.
Alright, Aubin Mercier and Thibaut Goudy.
Yep, and I turned out to be right about Aubin Mercier as well.
Yeah, Mercier wins via tap out, rear naked choke, 228 round 3. That's pretty good. Judging on my scorecards, another split going into the third. The first was a little closer. Well, they're both close rounds, but, you know, Mercier, man, that was a good submission. And this was the fight where when Aubin Mercier got the choke in, before he could really wrench back, Goudy was already tapping. He wanted no part of it. He's like, screw it, I'm out. Nope, not gonna happen.
Yeah, everybody has said that too, that it was a very fast tap on Goudy's part, but I think once you go to the ground with Aubin Mercier, you probably want to do that anyway because he's a wizard on the ground.
Alright, so let's move on to the next fight here with, actually this is the main, the fight of the night actually.
Yeah, $50,000.
I'm gonna say this because I couldn't believe when I heard this at the post-fight presser. Steve Boss and Sean O'Connell, your fight of the night. What?
I would not have predicted that myself, but I think you and I both picked O'Connell.
So, when Boss hit the scales, he looked like he enjoys getting the tanning before a fight because he was super tanned.
Mm-hmm.
And O'Connell's like Sheamus compared to him.
Of course.
Like, I'm not kidding. It was like night and day or sun and tan. I don't know. What do you want to say?
Mm-hmm.
So I had this fight, going, God, this fight went all 3 rounds and I had 29-28 for Boss. One fight, someone scored at 29-27.
Yeah, one of the judges.
So I'm not sure which judge gave 10-8.
Well, do you think there was a 10-8 round?
No, I don't.
Alright.
But this is why it's there, right? It's all subjective.
Yes, indeed.
Let's see. Boss said in the post-fight, I take the energy from the Canadian fans needs to put it to a better show. I think O'Connell received that energy. A big thank you to Sean O'Connell. The fans are the winners tonight. So very gracious, and I'm wondering who they put in front of him next.
Well, Bossy is proving himself to be a very capable mixed martial artist, so we're going to have to give him a chance because he's beat Tahuna and O'Connell now. He's, it's 2 out of 3 in the UFC that he's won, so he's more than just a hockey player. He's a real fighter.
That was the question somebody asked me. Was he an NHL enforcer? And I was like, well, yeah, like he's a hockey player, so just the way he carries himself, he has that athlete's mentality, like from a different sport, like when a football player comes to UFC or, you know what I mean? Like they have that different mentality. Like
Matt Mitrione in Bellator this weekend.
Exactly. It's a great comparison. All right. One of your favorites, Stevie. Donald the Cowboy Cerrone against Patrick the Predator Cote.
And I honestly thought Cote would have the advantage being that he's used to being a welterweight and Donald Cerrone is still working his way through that weight class after moving up from lightweight, but he acquitted himself very well in this fight, so I shouldn't have doubted the Cowboy. Now, it
comes to this fight, I had this conversation with some of the reporters. Why is Cerrone still ranked at lightweight?
Dude, I'm trying to figure it out myself because I'm doing the rankings and they haven't sent us an advisory saying to take him out of lightweight and only rank him at welterweight. Normally they'll tell us somebody's not eligible in a certain weight class when they change weights, like when they go from flyweight to bantamweight or vice versa. So until we get some direction from UFC about this, I guess he's going to be ranked in both.
Now here's the question: with Cerrone, did he get into the top 15 at 170?
Yeah, he did. He's number 14. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Wow.
So he's number 4 at lightweight and number 14 at welterweight.
So,
At some point, they're going to have to make up their minds which weight class he is and make sure to tell us when they do.
Now, my question is, just based on the rankings alone, who would you put in front of him next? Based on the rankings.
He's got a fight coming up, so he's not available, but I would put him with Kelvin Gastelum.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, I could see that. I asked him we should review this fight. Basically, Cerrone made history here. He now holds the record for most stoppages in UFC history. If you include his time in WEC with 15, it was like a logjam tied at 14. Mm-hmm. And of course, you're not going to be surprised when I tell you this, that during the post-fight interview, he was asked if he prefers fighting at 155 or is he going to stay at 170. His response was, 170 or 155, I don't give a shit.
That's typical cowboy.
So, I had this fight 10-9, 10-9. Like, unless Cote won by a knockout in the third, he wasn't winning this fight.
No,
he put up one hell of a performance, though.
Yeah, but I'm just surprised that Cerrone beat the bricks off him. I honestly, I really thought that with the hometown advantage and long-time experience at welterweight and Cerrone being new to the class, I thought Cote would get the better of this. I'm flabbergasted that I doubted Cerrone. I shouldn't have, but I didn't see this happening, and he won convincingly.
So with Cerrone, he was able to knock down Cote a couple of times, but he couldn't finish. Mm-hmm. Going to the third, I was like, is he going to finish him? Like, it was one of those questions. I was like, this is Cerrone, and he's taking Cote to the third. Cote is really tough, and getting out of a couple of those submission attempts, I'm like, holy crap, maybe Cote, is going to surprise some people here. And then that third one, another knockdown. This time, Cerrone knew he wasn't going to let Cote back up. There's no way. And he just finished him, and the referee's like, nope, that's it. It's over.
Yeah.
But,
let's move on to the main event. Wonderboy Thompson and Rory MacDonald.
So, okay, I'm going to say this, and I'm probably going to get some flack for this, but I had it on my scorecard 48-47 Rory.
You would be the only one.
Yes, and I've been ripped on Twitter for the last couple of days because of it. I
won't rip you too bad because one of the judges went 48-47 for Thompson. So
yeah.
Flip one of those rounds and you could go 48-47 Rory. So I won't give you that much.
I wasn't going to rip on someone. I'm not going to feed the trolls. Like, I'm smarter than that. I'm not going to fall for their tricks. I just wrote after the fight when the feedback on my Twitter came in that I said the first two rounds were closer than, in my opinion, if you give Rory the first two rounds, it's a much closer fight. And in my opinion, he was in the middle of the cage and Thompson kept bouncing around like Sam Alvey did, and like there's another fighter, Chris Beal. Mm-hmm. He was bouncing around the cage on the outside, landing a shot here and there. But in my opinion, Rory was being aggressive as well. He tried some ankle roll things. He was trying to keep up the pace and really was closing the distance on Thompson in those first two rounds. And I think when it comes to octagon control and what the judges are looking for, other judges were looking at, I guess, damage inflicted or, it's really hard to say in a round where over some of these fights, the fans were booing because there was no action. And it's like, come on, I paid $200 for this. Come on, stop dancing, fight, you know.
Well, they'd seen a lot of fights that had gone to the later rounds, so they were looking for a finish.
So, I mean, I had a 48-47. Obviously, you have to give the 5th round to Thompson because he broke MacDonald's nose. It's not funny. It was just that one shot. That sound, that plush sound, that like.
Yeah. The sound that you only really understand when you're at cage side, and I'm not belittling people who are watching it on TV or sitting up in the stands, but there's sort of a sickening thud when you're right there at cage side, and you're like, yeah, that's bone breaking.
And, you know, I mean, obviously we weren't there for the Anderson Silva incident, but it's one of those sounds you're not going to forget anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. No, I remember the exact same sound at UFC on Fox in Chicago, and I believe it was a Ricardo Lamas fight, and he landed an elbow on his opponent's nose, and I just knew at that exact moment. I was like, oh, that nose is gone.
So I scored it 48-47, but, you know, I have it, I'll read you verbatim. I'm looking right up right now. I said, I have it 48-47 MacDonald, but I'm predicting Thompson will win this fight by that score instead of MacDonald.
Well, you were right, but then the other two judges saw it as a lot more lopsided than that.
So, I mean, it's up for discussion, it's up for debate. What do you think about this fight?
I guess I would say based on damage inflicted and aggression, if you want to call it that Wonderboy Thompson was the winner of this fight.
Yeah, I mean, I had him, you know, 48-47 is a justifiable round. I'm just saying 50-45 and 50-45. Maybe I should watch this fight again with commentary. You know what I mean? See it through the fans' eyes to see where the 50-45 comes from. Mm-hmm. Or maybe I have to reevaluate where you're getting your basis for judging. You know what I mean?
I'll say this much, and hopefully this makes sense. Maybe it jibes with your point of view from cage side, maybe not, but the longer the fight went on, the less likely it seemed that MacDonald was going to win the fight.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Mm-hmm. I just think in that 3rd round, that was the difference maker. And Thompson, that's where, in my opinion, he started to really pick up that pace and closing the distance on MacDonald and landing a couple more shots here and here. And then the round 4, more of the same. Round 5, when that nose broke, it's like, oh wow, like and by that 4th round, MacDonald was starting to breathe like through his mouth, like why, like taking deep breaths. And you know how many times the coach said, don't breathe through your nose like that. Like, don't. It's a tell if you're playing poker. It's a tell.
Right. Yeah, you could tell he was getting gassed out.
All right. So.
Do you think this is his swan song? Do you think he's gone now?
Well, as I said on the report there, I said, is this his last fight? Only time will tell. You know, it's scary to think that we might have seen his last fight as a member of UFC, but somebody asked him at the post-fight press conference if that was a distraction, knowing that this is his last fight in his contract. He said, no, it wasn't. But how can it not be, considering if you win or lose, like, it's...
Well, let me put it this way. He's obviously still in the UFC as of right now because he hasn't been removed from the rankings. He's number 2 in the welterweight division.
Now, obviously, if he decides to leave UFC, you gotta think there's an offer from Bellator.
Yeah, immediately. They'd take him in a heartbeat.
Now, before we switch gears to last week's UFC or Bellator show, if you're booking Bellator and MacDonald is on the table, who would you put him up against first?
It'd be tempting to have him go right in there with Koreshkov.
That's who some people were speculating as well.
I mean, we've already seen what happened when Benson Henderson went in there with Koreshkov. Let's see if the same thing could happen, or if he can turn the tables and knock off the champion.
Be a hell of a fight.
Sure.
Maybe they get him the fight at Casino Rama.
Maybe they could do it here.
We're in Omaha?
or Mid-America Center.
That'd be
You know
good.
they do about 2 Bellator shows a year there.
Is it a big venue?
It's probably 10,000, something like that.
Okay. That's pretty good.
I'd have to look it up to be sure. Let me see if I can find that here.
But as Stevie's looking that up, I'll just say it was a great experience. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, capacity 9,000 for concerts, 7,000 for basketball, about 6,700 for hockey. So I'd say set it up for fights. It could be about 8 to 10,000 people.
Well, there you go. All right, so that's UFC Fight Night Ottawa pretty much. Great experience. Hope to do it again.
Absolutely. It'll be the first of many. I'm sure you'll be doing it very soon.
All right, let's switch gears to Bellator this past weekend.
All right. Well, we're going to go in the opposite order this time. We're going to go from top to the bottom instead of from the bottom to the top. And there's a good reason for that, Peter. You want to know what that is?
What's that?
About 50% of these fights never aired because they only showed 2 of the prelim fights on Spike.com, and they didn't air any fights during the show as bonus fights, and they didn't have any post-fight streamed fights. There was no post-preliminary dark matches streamed online, so I literally only saw 6 fights out of this entire card.
Why? Why would they do that?
I don't know. Maybe because the start time, California time, didn't work well with the television broadcast, so they couldn't squeeze in enough of the prelim fights beforehand. I'm not sure.
Well, let's talk about that main event then.
Yes, Eduardo Dantas took back the title that was once his with a very lopsided fight. 50-45, 50-44, and 50-43. Marcos Galvão did not only not win a single round of this fight, he didn't win a single minute of this fight. In fact, if you had stopped the fight at the end of the 4th round, I would not have argued with it because Galvão's right eye was entirely swollen shut. There was no way he could see to defend himself, but somehow the doctor and the referee both agreed to let him continue. I was not in favor of it. I thought the fight should have been ended right then and there. It could have been ended after the 3rd round for that matter.
So you think the doctor screwed up?
I'm not saying the doctor screwed up. Maybe the doctor just thought Galvão was answering the questions the right way and still seemed to have his wits about him and said, okay, I'll give him a chance. But personally, if I'm a doctor and a guy can't see out of one eye, I'm calling the fight. But I'm not a doctor, so what do I know?
Well, that's why you fight the fights, I suppose. But I mean, you want to fight until there's a winner, a decision, something like that. If you think you can still go and you are of the right mind and mental capacity to continue, go for it. Yeah, but if your doctor is saying, I can still see, but, that's what you're programmed to see, it's...
I mean, it's all well and good to have the heart of a champion and to go out there on your sword and shield and not give up, but he knew he was getting the bricks beat off him. Dantas was just so much faster and so much more accurate with his striking, and the only thing you could say after that performance is Galvão is tough as shit because he didn't get knocked out, but he still took a beating.
Do you think his strategy will change in his next fight?
See, right now with the whole bantamweight division,
I know.
It's like a whole styles make fights thing because you've got Dantas can be beaten by Warren can be beaten by Galvão, and Galvão can be beaten by Dantas. So the only way to break up this round robin that they've got going on is for Darian Caldwell to come in there and beat the bricks off Dantas. So we'll see if that happens.
All right, what about the co-main?
Kind of boring for 2 rounds, although I would say Chidi Njokuani was getting the better of it just because Thiago Jambo was originally supposed to be on a prelim fight and got switched to the main card on short notice because of the fact that Douglas Lima pulled out of this card and moved to the Bellator 158 card in London. So a lot of juggling to get everything lined up here, and Jambo was, I'd say, game for the first 2 rounds, but he wasn't winning. And then in the 3rd round, Njokuani finally slipped in a nice kick to me, it looked like the kick reached all the way up to his head, but according to the official report, it was a body kick. But either way, once that kick landed, Jumbo was done. He was not defending himself after that, and it was quickly finished.
Well, unfortunately, these things happen, though, in fights.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sport. It's a live sport. It's not like it's scripted, so.
Right. Well, why would the script have Jumbo winning anyway as a replacement? You wouldn't expect it.
No, but, it's a surprise, but, I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility.
Now, if you were scripting things, you probably would have scripted Brandon Halsey to win and get back into contention for the title that he lost to Rafael Cavallo. John Salter had other ideas.
Yes, he did.
So you saw this fight.
I saw bits of it.
Were those the bits of blood that were flying all over the place?
That's what someone sent me a couple of pictures. I'm like, what am I watching? Oh, dear God.
Yeah, Salter split him open with a kick like 30 seconds in, and there's just a gusher of blood coming from Halsey after that. And I didn't know if it was going to lead to a finish, but it sure was making a mess out of the cage, and both of them and everybody around in any nearby vicinity. It was buckets of blood. I mean, Halsey was a Crimson Mask like pro wrestling days of yore, like the 1980s Crimson Mask. He was covered in that much blood.
Well, it's because I got home from the weigh-ins and the Q&A, and I was just doing my last-minute prep for the Saturday show here, and I get a message. I forget who it was from now, but it was like, "Are you watching Bellator?" I'm like, "Well, I want to, but I just finished up some prep. Why?" "Do you know who got busted open?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" The mat is like, there's stains of blood. I'm like, oh, it's probably a prelim. So there's a picture of some blood. I'm like, no wait, that's Halsey. What the hell happened here? Like, the last person I expected to get busted open was Halsey.
Right. And Salter took advantage of the situation when he already had Halsey hurt and just made a complete mess out of himself. And Halsey was going for a desperation single leg, knowing that he was taking a beating, and he got it, but Salter, like a wizard, immediately went to the triangle from that position, and Salter was just dead on accurate. You know, there was no way that Halsey was getting out at that point. He'd already had the bricks beaten off of him. Now he's trapped in a submission. He's a bloody mess. It was over. He tapped. And Salter cut the perfect promo afterwards saying, you know, this guy used to be the champion. I just dominated him in the first round. I think I should be getting the championship shot next. It should be me. I beat the former champ. Give me the champ.
It's funny. There's an old Simpsons quote that's perfect for this, where it's a old episode where Nelson and Bart are fighting, and Nelson punches Bart, and Bart punches Nelson, and he goes, dude, you're bleeding. And Nelson goes, nah, it's the other guy's blood. It happens all the time. Wait a minute. You made me bleed my own blood. Because, like, if you look at Halsey's record, I mean, win. Of course, the liver kick lost to Cavell, but, you know, like, the last person, if I told you last week that Halsey was going to get busted open and lose in the first round, you'd be like, you're on something.
Although, if you go back and listen to my interview with Salter, he was pretty darn confident coming into the fight, and you can see. I know. Like I said, this is not what you would have scripted, but man, did Salter deliver when it was his moment in the spotlight.
It's like when we talk about these fighters who give me anybody. If you're not a confident fighter and you don't want to fight for a title, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, so Salter at least took advantage of that opportunity. The mic was in front of him. He said the right thing. He's like, give me that fucking title. He didn't use those words, but that's how he meant it.
All right, any other notes you want to talk about Bellator?
Yeah, Chris Honeycutt and Mikel Parlo. Honeycutt dominated this fight. He got a unanimous decision, 29-28, 30-27 times 2, and out-wrestled him, outworked him, outstruck him. Parlo hadn't had more than a couple of fights in the last 3 years, and this is a guy who once went all the way to the finals of a middleweight tournament and lost to Brennan Ward, so we know he's a capable fighter, but I think ring rust was showing here.
Little bit. All right, so what else we got here? I know we've got lots of news to get to.
And we've got a huge Bellator card on Friday.
Yeah, that's what I was going to next here. Let's talk about the big show in St. Louis, Missouri.
23 fights.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, you don't have any room to talk. Don't say Jesus to me. I'm covering this show. I have to do play-by-play.
Now, if every fight goes the maximum number of rounds except for one, you'll be mad.
Oh my God. You think you were mad at how many fights went long in Ottawa? You ain't got nothing on me.
Alright, well, let's start at the top. Ishii and Rampage.
This one, if it goes the distance, I'll be shocked.
No, don't, okay, yeah, okay. Thank God you said that, okay.
Yeah. No, I expect Rampage Jackson to just come out there and put on an ass whooping, as he said on the conference call. But Ishii is not a slouch. This is a gold medalist in judo. This is a very skilled ground fighter. If he can get Rampage to the ground, it could be very interesting. And Ishii says that he's been working with Rico Verhoeven and Gegard Mousasi on his striking. So I wouldn't say he's going to outpunch Rampage, but I bet he can land an accurate shot if he's given a chance. The question is, will Rampage give him a chance? I'm not betting on it.
All right, what about Michael I'm going to go with Rampage as well on this one. Let's go to Chandler and Ferrari for the lightweight title.
Chandler has the edge going in because he's already beaten Ferrari once before. He's on a bit of a run of late, and he's looking to get back the lightweight title now that it's been vacated. This is his opportunity, and depending on what time of day and what interview you get, Chandler will say either that he respects Patricky a lot or that he thinks he's a stagnant fighter who hasn't really improved since the first time they fought. I don't know which way to take it, but I do know that there's one thing Chandler says that I totally agree with. Ferrari hits very hard, and if Chandler gets sloppy at any point in this fight, he could get rocked.
Okay, we've talked about Diaz brothers and the pitter-patter punches. This is the opposite of that type of attack.
No. And that's where Chandler thinks he's got the advantage, because it's not pitter-patter punches, and since Pitbull hits so hard, he feels like if the first round goes by and he hasn't gotten a knockout, that his resolve is broken because he's throwing with bad intentions and he's putting everything he's got into it. So he thinks that in that first round, if he doesn't win, then he's already broken Pitbull and the rest will be not a cakewalk, but just, it'll be downhill from there.
When it comes to Pitbull, I really don't want to be the guy who trains him for his punches and holds the pads for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I would just be like, you gonna pay me how much? Yeah, give me more, cause I'm not gonna, like, he hits like scary Mike Tyson type power. And that's saying something, cause we've seen a lot of fighters come and go in this sport, and
Chandler's a pretty hard-hitting guy too.
Is there anybody in 155 in UFC that hits like him?
That hits like either one of them?
Yeah.
I guess I'd say El Kukui.
I would even say Nurmagomedov.
Yeah. Eddie Alvarez in the right day at the right time.
On the right day, yeah. But, it's just that lightweight. Even at Bellator, lightweight is crazy as far as talent pool, because can you imagine if Chandler or Ferrari goes to UFC? They're still stacked with fighters who could easily step up and take that crown. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, just future booking, it's already been talked about, the fact that Chandler and Thompson were supposed to fight in San Jose and didn't get to, and if Chandler wins, that's your next contender right there, or it could even be Benson Henderson if he moves back down to 155. It is a very deep lightweight roster in Bellator.
All right, let's go to...
Wait, who are you picking? Are you picking Ferrari or Chandler?
I gotta go with Pitbull.
I gotta go with Chandler.
All right, Matt Mitrione and Carl Sumentafa.
No, Seumanatafa.
Damn, I tried.
You were close, but not quite.
All right, so who you got?
Well, Seumanatafa is your definition of a journeyman fighter.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy that promoters will call when they need a last-minute replacement, and he's not a bad guy. I mean, he works with the scrap pack, so you know he's training with a good bunch of dudes, but he's, like I said, he's not a guy that's been known to be the big star. And Matt Mitrione is being brought in as the big star, so draw your own conclusion.
See, I'm going with Meathead in this one.
Yeah, same here. It's a showcase fight for him, which is why I more or less asked him on the conference call, do you think that a sterling performance here gets you into consideration for the vacant heavyweight title? And he played that off and said, I don't have to make those decisions. That's the great thing about this sport. If it goes well, we'll have that talk, and if they want me in that, I'll do that, and if not, I'll fight whoever they put in front of me. So he was being a little political about it, but honestly, if he beats the bricks off Sam Onatafa, then they can either give him a much tougher fight with a much bigger name opponent, or they can put him in that mix for the vacant title. It could go either way.
All right, what about McFarlane and Ruth?
I've got Ali Malay here because I like Rebecca Ruth's skill set. I think she's a great wrestler, but again, I feel like they've got certain people in their mind they've picked out to be stars. I think they've got Ali Malay slotted for that, and I think they feel like her overall striking game is the answer to Rebecca Ruth's wrestling game, but Ruth has been known to pull off the upset before, so don't rule out anything.
No, I mean, McFarlane's 3-0, Ruth is 6-1. It's going to be a good fight.
Yeah,
I'm going to go with Ruth, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if McFarlane wins.
Yeah, I expect a good fight.
All right, let's see. Prelims, boy, oh boy, this is a good card. But you said there's a lot of fights on here. Kobayashi and Lawrence would be good.
I was just about to focus on that one because I interviewed Lawrence, and he's talking about how he's back with Alliance MMA, and he says he's training like a beast, and when you're training with guys like Dominic Cruz and Jeremy Stevens, it brings out the beast in you, so let's see if he can do that to Kobayashi, a former king of Pancrase. So if he's going to go out there and unleash the beast, he's getting a tough guy to do it with.
All right, let's quickly switch gears. We got to get some news in before we wrap up this show this week. Let's start with Chad Money Mendez.
Yes, USADA.
He has tweeted out on, I believe it was Friday, or it might have been Saturday. I didn't do my homework, and that was a big mistake. I own it, and I'm going to pay for it. Now, we got to wait for the official results to come in from USADA, but first-time offenders, depending on what it is, probably going to get 2-year suspension here.
Yeah, he could be having a nice long sit.
All right, so Miesha Tate said not fighting Ronda Rousey would be... Hold on, I'm getting some feedback here. Basically, if she doesn't get a chance to fight Ronda Rousey, that it'd be a void that she didn't get filled. So basically, I think you have to make that fight. However, if you're Rousey, do you really want to come back for that one fight? There's so many different variables here because it's someone you've already beaten multiple times. Yes, she's now the champion. Do you have anything by gaining another win over her? Like, in your career, what do you have to prove? She could walk away from this sport now and be done with fighting and just become an actor.
That's true.
So, I mean, she's a pioneer. She put women's MMA on the map. She comes back. Does she get that title shot right away? Does she have to have a tune-up fight? If, you know what I mean? It's just so much. Until we get a statement, she won't be ready for a while. There's, what's that? Roadhouse right now that she's filming. So.
Yes.
Now, we don't have many details on the UFC sale. The report we mentioned about Flow Combat, UFC's denying it, but it looks like it's been sold to the American company, I believe.
Yeah.
WME IMG. It's
there's
Dalian Wanda Group.
Yeah, Dalian is the Chinese group that's involved. It's like a combined package of different investors that have put in alleged a $4.2 billion bid, and allegedly the bid.
Billion.
Yes, with a B. And allegedly the bid has been accepted, but UFC is denying it, and we only have Jeremy Bauder's report at Flow Combat to go on. There's no definitive 100% locked down, guaranteed, believe it, it's real, guaranteed that UFC is sold. Just a report that there is a winning bid out there.
Wow. 4.2 billion, Steve. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And considering that the Fertittas and Dana White were in at the beginning for like $40 million, that is one heck of a return on the investment.
Moving on to a big story here in Canada. I'm not sure what kind of play it's getting in the States right now, but it looks like Georges St. Pierre might be coming back to the UFC.
That's why I mentioned earlier if there was anything that you had heard, because it definitely came out on the MMA Hour on Monday, because GSP did an interview on the show and said he's ready to make his return and he wants Bisping.
I mentioned this about Rousey, and GSP's name was mentioned in the Q&A, but basically shrug it off because, you know what I mean? Like, nothing really to say, but with GSP himself coming out on the hour and saying he's ready, what does he have to prove? He's been away from the sport for a while. Like, do you think a fight in 2016 or 2017 will tarnish the legacy of GSP?
I don't know. I don't think anything can tarnish his legacy.
Well, do you think he deserves an automatic title shot?
I don't even know if I consider it a title shot. I just consider it a super fight at this point.
Well, I think it was Chris Weidman when the fans were asking him, would you fight, what do you think of the rumors GSP was going to fight Michael Bisping? And Weidman said, well, they're giving GSP an easy opponent.
I wouldn't say anything's easy.
Well, you know how much disdain he has for Bisping, so.
Right.
It was just like one of those shocking moments. I think he did just try to get a rise out of the crowd, but it was like, whoa. It's tough. There was a joke about, he made a comment about Stipe Miocic, and the crowd started healing on Weidman, and he just, no, don't boo me. He's a friend of mine. He'd laugh at that joke. He'd laugh. And one more note from the Q&A that made me laugh was when they asked Stevie Ray about who his dream opponent would be, he said Conor McGregor because it'd be a red panty day for me.
Okay.
And that got the crowd laughing, but all right. So we mentioned this person before on a few of the podcasts already. Do you remember the gentleman who bet significant amount of money on Holly Holm? He bet money on the Kansas City Royals. Remember?
Yeah, they're calling him $1 Million Dave.
Vegas Dave.
Whatever.
He bet $1 million on Misha at UFC 200.
Oh, well, good for him.
Do you think that's smart money, or?
I don't know what's smart money at this point, but if he likes it, then let him place that bet. Why not?
Yeah, I already talked about the early weigh-ins. Diego Ferreira is suspended 12 months. Failed tests, so 12 months, okay. Dana White, we talked about we didn't talk about we talked about the sale, we did. And St. Pierre, we already talked about that. And the last thing here is the Nevada State Athletic Commission has named the referees for UFC 200. And I'm just trying to see, who do you think they got for Jones and Cormier?
I'd say Big John.
Let's see, and the winner is Big John McCarthy. Yep. Herb Dean will be refereeing Misha Tate and Amanda Nunes. McCarthy will referee Cormier and Jones, while Derek Cleary, Sal D'Amato, and Glenn Trowbridge handle the scorecards. This Sal D'Amato, he's on every card, isn't he?
Seems like it.
He was even in Ottawa. So I couldn't point him out of a lineup, but it was like, when they announced the three judges at Cage Side, I'm like, this guy's on everywhere. It's like the Cecil Peoples joke. It's like he's everywhere.
I guess so.
Alright, well, that's all the news I've got on my list. We had a long show this week. What's on tap Thursday night AMP?
No idea. I'll find out Thursday.
Well, I think the only one you're going to talk about on Thursday is a certain wrestler getting suspended for 30 days.
Yeah, we'll talk about it then.
All right. Any plugs you want to throw out there?
Nah, I got some stuff to do, so I'll have to let you go.
All right. Well, for Stevie J, I'm Peter H, Hardcore Canadian. Thanks for listening. And as I always say, never leave it to the judges. Good night, everybody.